5 million people visit Zion National Park every year. They board quiet shuttles, walk paved trails past flush toilets and drinking fountains, and wade barefoot into a crystal-clear river while families push strollers along the canyon floor. From the valley, looking up at the massive red walls glowing in afternoon light, Zion feels like the safest wilderness in America. Since 2007, 59 people have died here. And what should unsettle you isn't the number, it's the names on the list. A PhD researcher who studied hydrology and atmospheric sciences, a retired neurosurgeon, a retired district fire chief with decades of professional risk assessment. Zion doesn't primarily kill the reckless or the unprepared. It kills people who had every reason to believe they knew exactly what they were doing. So what is it about this paved, shuttled, government-managed park that keeps killing the people best equipped to survive it? Zion sits in southwestern Utah, about 160 miles northeast of Las Vegas. Its defining feature is a deep gorge carved by the Virgin River through 229 square miles of Navajo sandstone, walls of crimson and cream rising over 1,000 feet above the canyon floor. It's the second most visited national park in the country, behind only the Great Smoky Mountains. And it doesn't feel like wilderness. Visitors park in the gateway town of Springdale, board propane-powered shuttles, and step off at trailheads with restroom facilities and water-filling stations. The Virgin River flows gently over a sandy bottom for most of the year, reflecting golden light off the walls. Social media has focused attention on two features above all others: Angel's Landing, a knife-edge ridge hike with 1,000-foot drops, and the Narrows, where visitors walk directly through the river between walls so high they block the sun. Both look spectacular in every photograph. Neither one looks lethal, which is exactly the problem. When a place looks this managed, paved walkways, directional signs, thousands of other people in casual footwear, the brain does something automatic. It assumes that if the government built the trail, and if families with small children are walking on it, the environment has been made safe for public consumption. 90% of Zion is designated wilderness. The paved trails, the shuttle stops, the water fountains, those exist along a thin strip of managed canyon floor. Step beyond it, and the infrastructure ends. In 2025, the park's search and rescue teams were dispatched more than 500 times, more than one emergency call per day, all year long. The gap between what Zion looks like and what it actually is accounts for nearly everything that goes wrong here. The first thing most visitors do in Zion's 100-degree heat is wade into the Virgin River. It's cold, clear, and shallow enough for children to splash in. Backcountry hikers fill their bottles, run the water through ceramic pump filters, and drink without a second thought. They've done it 100 times in 100 other rivers, and the routine itself is a kind of expertise, one that fails completely here. What they can't see are the benthic cyanobacteria growing in thin mats on the rocks beneath the surface. They look like faint brown or yellowish mineral deposits, something you'd step right over without noticing. But those mats produce anatoxin A, a neurotoxin originally nicknamed very fast death factor by the researchers who isolated it. The molecule mimics the body's own nerve signals, binding to the receptors that trigger muscle contraction. And unlike the body's natural signals, the enzyme that normally clears them can't break this one down. The binding is permanent. If a significant dose reaches the diaphragm, it locks in continuous contraction, and the victim suffocates while fully conscious, unable to draw a single breath. Standard backcountry water filters don't catch it. Iodine tablets don't neutralize it, and UV pens don't touch it. The toxin passes straight through every conventional treatment. In the Virgin River, concentrations have been measured at over 550 micrograms per liter, more than 6 times the EPA's threshold for total avoidance of all water contact. In July 2020, a dog that ingested floating mat material from the river was dead within hours. Toxicologists have estimated that a toddler swallowing a single tablespoon of that same material could receive a lethal dose. No confirmed human death from it in Zion, but the toxin is measured, monitored, and clinging to the riverbed beneath a stream that 5 million people a year walk through barefoot. But the river isn't the only feature in Zion concealing something lethal behind a benign surface. Zion's slot canyons draw thousands of technical canyoneers every year, experienced climbers who rappel through narrow, sculpted corridors of polished sandstone. They carry ropes, harnesses, mechanical descenders, and the confidence that comes from years of vertical experience. If something goes wrong on a rappel, a device jams, a foot slips, the harness catches them. It does exactly what it was designed to do. And then it starts killing them. When a human body hangs motionless in a climbing harness, the leg straps crush the femoral veins in the inner thighs, bearing the victim's entire weight. At the same time, because the legs aren't moving, the skeletal muscle pump, the mechanism that normally squeezes venous blood back up toward the heart, shuts down. Blood pools rapidly in the lower extremities and stays there. Up to 20% of circulating blood volume can drain below the waist within minutes. The heart races to compensate, but it's pumping from an emptying tank. The brain begins to starve. Nausea hits, vision tunnels, and then unconsciousness, which, under normal circumstances, would cause the body to collapse horizontally and restore blood flow instantly. But in a harness, the victim stays vertical. The brain keeps suffocating. A perfectly healthy, uninjured person can be dead in under 30 minutes, killed not by the fall, but by the equipment that caught it. On September 18, 2012, Yoshio Hosobuchi, a 74-year-old retired neurosurgeon, entered the left fork of North Creek with his wife. The route, known locally as the subway, was a bucket list trip. During a 30-foot rappel, his descender jammed. Attempting to free himself, he cut his waist belt with a knife. The harness slipped to his ankles, tangled around his foot, and inverted him entirely, upside down inside a freezing waterfall. His wife, already at the canyon floor, couldn't reach him. Commercial guiding is prohibited inside the park, and the 1,000-foot canyon walls blocked all cell service. A man who had spent his career operating on the human nervous system was killed by a mechanical failure of his own cardiovascular system, entirely alone in a canyon too deep for anyone to reach him in time. And still, neither the neurotoxin nor the harness accounts for what has killed more people in Zion than any other single cause. Since 2007, 29 people have died from slips and falls, 49% of every fatality in the park, and the vast majority happened on one 2.5-mile trail. Angel's Landing is a knife-edge sandstone ridge rising over 1,000 feet above the canyon floor. The Park Service has bolted 55 meters of heavy steel chains into the rock along the most exposed stretches, alongside carved stone steps and posted warning signs. All of it communicates one message: this is an officially sanctioned, managed path. And it makes sense. If the park installed the hardware, the danger must be under control. But the chains only work if your feet stay under you, and the surface beneath them is Navajo sandstone coated in a fine layer of pulverized silica, microscopic grains that function effectively like ball bearings scattered across polished glass. A fall onto a hard surface from just 78 feet, roughly the height of an 8-story building, carries a 90% fatality rate. The drops along Angel's Landing regularly exceed 800 feet. At that distance, the body reaches terminal velocity before impact. There is nothing to survive and nothing a rescue team can do upon arrival. The demographic profile of the victims is what should recalibrate how you think about this trail. The highest fatality group isn't reckless 20-somethings. It's males aged 55 to 64, seasoned hikers who trust a lifetime of trail experience and don't recognize that this specific surface eliminates the margin for error entirely. In April 2026, Gilberto Ramos, a 68-year-old retired district fire chief from Laredo, Texas, slipped on the chained section and fell hundreds of feet down the north side of the canyon during the park's centennial celebration of the Zion Lodge. A career built on risk assessment, hazard recognition, and safety protocols ended on a government-maintained trail. In a separate incident, a 13-year-old girl was hiking near the second set of chains with 12 family members when she fell 679 feet. 12 adults on that trail, and not one of them noticed she had fallen behind. She was wearing sandals and an ankle-length prairie dress, clothing no one in the group had questioned on a path where the Park Service had installed chains. Search teams found her sandal tracks in loose sand 6 meters off the maintained trail. And here's what tells you everything about how normalized death on this ridge has become. In August 2006, a 29-year-old woman named Bernadette Vandermeer fell 1,200 feet from the summit while hiking with her husband, a Las Vegas youth pastor. He told investigators he'd been setting up a camera for a sunrise anniversary photo when she slipped. For 16 years, it was classified as a tragic accident because people fall from Angel's Landing all the time. In 2022, detectives reopened the case and cross-referenced his account with NASA sunrise data. The first 911 call was placed at 6:20 a.m. The sun didn't rise until 6:54. He'd increased her life insurance to $550,000 weeks before the trip and told a teenage girl he'd been grooming that they could be together if Bernadette was not alive. The trail is so reliably lethal that it concealed a murder for 16 years. Before we get into the single most devastating mechanism in this park, the one that killed 7 people in a single afternoon under blue skies. If this investigation has already shifted how you see Zion, subscribing takes 1 second and means the next one reaches you automatically. Everything else in this park, the neurotoxin, the harness, the 1,000-foot drops, none of it carries the specific violence of what Zion's geology can do with water. The landscape is, functionally, a massive concrete funnel. Hundreds of square miles of bare Navajo sandstone surround the canyon, and this rock absorbs almost nothing. When rain strikes it, the water sheets off the surface and drains into a branching network of ravines that narrow and narrow until they converge into slot canyons, sometimes only a few feet wide. 2/3 of an inch of rain across a 5-square-mile catchment generates roughly 55 million gallons of runoff. On soil, that disappears. On sandstone, every drop stays on the surface and accelerates toward the lowest point. Because the canyons can't widen, the water builds upward and surges forward. A creek flowing at 55 cubic feet per second can reach 2,630 in exactly 15 minutes, over 1 million gallons per minute, the weight of 2 fully loaded semi-trucks hammering through the canyon every single second. The leading edge of that surge isn't water. It's closer to wet concrete, a churning wall of mud, sand, stripped tree trunks, and grinding boulders. When it strikes a human body, the cause of death is rarely drowning. It's catastrophic blunt force trauma. The body battered against the sandstone walls and pulverized by debris long before the lungs even fill. But the real cruelty is the disconnect between where the rain falls and where the flood arrives. A slot canyon can sit under a flawless blue sky while a thunderstorm dumps rain on slick rock 5 miles upstream. There is no local darkening, no warning drizzle, no shift in the wind, and by the time the deep, low-frequency roar of the approaching water reaches your ears, the walls on either side are hundreds of feet of sheer, unscalable rock. On September 14, 2015, 7 experienced hikers from California and Nevada entered Keyhole Canyon. Mark McKenzie, 56, Linda Arthur, 57, Steve Arthur, 58, Gary Favela, 51, Don Teichner, 55, Muku Reynolds, 59, and Robin Brum, 53. They had completed a canyoneering safety course that morning, secured their permits by 7:40 a.m., and checked the weather before driving in. They did everything right. At 12:53 p.m., Mackenzie texted his family a photo of blue skies and scattered white clouds. His message, "Eating lunch, this is my view. Maybe Keyhole this afternoon." At 2:22 p.m., the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning and rangers closed the canyons. But the group had driven beyond cell range more than an hour earlier. They entered Keyhole Canyon between 3:30 and 4:30 that afternoon. Between 4:30 and 5:30, a localized storm dropped 0.63 inches of rain on the slick rock above them. The Virgin River surged from 55 to 2,630 cubic feet per second. All 7 were killed. Their bodies were recovered over the following days. Some washed miles downstream into the Pine Creek drainage. The sky directly above them never darkened. The storm that killed all 7 of them was never visible from where they stood. Keyhole Canyon is deep backcountry, a technical route most visitors would never attempt. But 3 years later, the same force struck the most popular trail in the park. On August 19, 2022, Jatal Agnihotri, a 29-year-old PhD student at the University of Arizona whose doctoral research focused on hydrology and atmospheric sciences, was hiking the Narrows with friends. Thousands of people walk that trail every day, wading through the Virgin River between 1,000-foot walls. She was, by training and education, one of the most qualified people in that canyon to understand what was about to happen. Around 2:15 p.m., monsoonal rain upstream sent a flash flood tearing through the canyon. While her friends scrambled to higher ground, Agnihotri was swept off her feet. Her brother later told reporters she didn't know how to swim, though in a debris-laden current carrying that kind of force, it wouldn't have mattered. Her body was found 4 days later, 6 miles downstream. And the systemic reality is that the park cannot solve this. The same 1,000-foot sandstone walls that make the canyons beautiful block every cellular signal and radio frequency. A weather warning issued at 2:22 p.m. is useless to a group that lost service at 1 o'clock. As one park ranger put it after the Keyhole Canyon tragedy, it is not possible to contact everyone. By the time you are standing in the kill zone, you have been completely severed from the outside world. And by the time the roar reaches your ears, there is nowhere to go. Against nearly 5 million annual visitors, those 59 deaths across 17 years work out to roughly 1 fatality for every 1.4 million trips through the park. For any individual hiker on any given day, the statistical risk is extraordinarily low, and the park has taken meaningful action. In April 2022, the NPS implemented a permit lottery for Angel's Landing, directly addressing the overcrowding that had been forcing hikers off secure paths onto unstable margins. It worked. Between the system's launch and 2024, only a single fall fatality occurred on the trail, compared to the steady accumulation in prior years. But here's what the statistics can't capture. The distance between the people who survived Zion and the people who didn't is frequently a single misstep, a single gust on the ridgeline, or a single hour of timing. The permit system reduced crowding on one trail, but it didn't change the coefficient of friction on sandstone, and it doesn't cover the park's hundreds of other exposed ridgelines. The National Weather Service can issue a flash flood warning with reasonable accuracy, but it cannot deliver that warning to someone standing between 1,000-foot walls of rock without cell service. And even when a rescue is called in, the response isn't handled by a standing tactical unit on permanent standby. It's managed by a rotating pool of roughly 198 people. Interpretive rangers, maintenance workers, and local volunteers who abandon whatever they're doing when the text alert goes out. When a helicopter extraction is approved, mobilization to rescue runs approximately 80 minutes. For someone pinned in a slot canyon filling with water, 80 minutes is indistinguishable from never. If you're planning a trip to Zion, the preparation matters more than the fear. Do not drink from the Virgin River. Standard backcountry filters, iodine, and UV treatment will not remove dissolved antitoxin A. Carry all your own water or fill exclusively from isolated spring sources well above the main drainage. Keep dogs completely out of the river. Ingestion of floating mat material can be fatal within hours. Do not enter a slot canyon if the daily flash flood potential is listed as even possible. Once you're inside and below cell range, no warning system on Earth can reach you. If there is any flood potential in the forecast, cancel the trip. The chains on Angel's Landing are handholds, not guardrails. If wind is present on the ridgeline, turn around. A heavy gust on loose sand can take your footing before your hands can compensate. Wear approach shoes with sticky rubber soles. The sandstone coated in loose silica behaves like marbles on glass, and a slip on that surface doesn't give you a recovery step. If you're canyoneering, carry suspension trauma relief straps on your harness. If a device jams and you're left hanging motionless, you have minutes, not hours, before your cardiovascular system begins to fail. Remaining still in a harness is not waiting for rescue. If you're hiking the Narrows, understand that the Virgin River runs as cold as 38 degrees, even in the middle of summer, colder than the inside of your refrigerator, because the 1,000-foot walls block the sun from ever reaching the water. Cotton clothing and sneakers will put you into hypothermia. Rent dry suits and neoprene boots from the outfitters in Springdale before you step in. Zion is one of the most beautiful places on Earth, but beauty and safety have never been the same thing here, and the park cannot protect you from a mistake it was never designed to prevent.